And now I'm a little bit sad that we didn't plan a little bit more time for every presentation, because obviously it would be even better if both of you had some more time at your disposal. But on the other hand, we are just now right on time. Unfortunately, I'm speaking with Yassim currently, and he had some technical problems and has to leave, and he is not able to return at the moment back to the webinar. But fortunately, we are right on time for the for the panel. So this is what we're going to do. We are now going to have a discussion, the panel. Also, I'm inviting all our attendees to send their questions and comments, and we already had some in the chat. In the case that Yassim returns in the next 20 minutes, then we will see if there will be enough time also for his presentation. If not, we might move it next to our next webinar. So let me just check if we can hear both Emmanuel and Idoia. I think that you're both now live.
Yes.
And so I will open the discussion with one question that basically both of you touched at least briefly. So my first question would be that in general, when we are developing AI, is there enough attention on the ethics side of the development? And if there is, what kind of source of ethics is used in most of the cases? So I'm not sure, because we can see the trends that we are speaking much more about ethics, but on the other hand, I don't have enough information what is happening inside all of those companies who are creating those products. So just to check if you have any kind of overview.
Yes, I can start shortly. The point is that actually ethics is not enough present in the thinking of AI. This is my point. And I mean, when I mean ethics, I mean really the philosophical standpoint. Once again, there is a lot of discourses, a lot of things that have been said about ethics, but most of the time it's not ethics per se. And what is really lacking for the moment is real ethics. And this is something that you will find in many comments, if you look on the internet, is that in many companies now, they need philosophers or ethicists that will bring the philosophical position on ethics. Most of the time, it's mainly about communication, and it's not really about ethics. As Thomas Metzinger said it, when you have 52 people and only 4 people that are philosophers, it shows that the importance of philosophy is really low. When you compare it to the industry, right? And I've worked also on the military here in France. The defense industry is working on the code of ethics regarding human enhancement. And when you look at the panel, the people that are the member of this committee, there is only one ethicist among 19 people. So that means that ethics is not present. And for the second part, this is why I was talking about the tyranny of this superficial deontological perspective of the West, is that we mainly use deontology when we speak about ethics, which is, and it's a really low-cost deontology, right? Lots of people do not read Immanuel Kant, the Metaphysics, and they do not know about it. So they're doing kind of deontology, which is imposing rules regarding what is acceptable and what is not, without even thinking philosophically what is at stake exactly. So it's really low-cost deontology, and it's normal because it's not done by philosophers. So it's much more, a narrative that will shape the behaviors once again, and the perception than ethics per se.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yes, we are doing in Odisseia some initiatives towards this, like trying to in which we are analyzing the different strategies on responsible AI of the main companies that uses data, like Google, Microsoft, Telefónica here in Spain, and also Google, Microsoft, IBM. And I know that because we are nowadays studying these strategies. They do have a strategy on ethics of AI inside of these big companies. Some of them have it more developed than others, but they do. They keep the elements that I shown in one of my slides. But what they do, they really have to some kind, because they are going to be like in a while, in more than maybe 2 or 3 months, the European Union are going to be launching this new legislation. So, and they will have to develop different products that could be in this, I mean, could release these products without doing anything bad or wrong, or that this like under this legislation. So they do have these strategies in which one specific product or service that would have a high impact on society is being studied, and is, if it doesn't match some of their ethical points, it is not released. But but anyway, and I really see that nowadays they see like still they see the ethics of AI just a thing for data scientists, for the people that are just programming. And I really think that is something that should be thinking about, not just the data scientists at the end, but the managers from the different companies that want to release these products with good and safe AI, safe products with AI. So so I think there is still a need of thinking of how to make good products with ethics, with this ethical point of view by design, before even start, when thinking about this specific product or services, they should be following some specific rules this way.
I think that we are going probably to unpack it a little bit more in the following questions. I will just ask one more and then connect it to one question that also Mark van Meel asked in the chat. So basically, I think that you already both of you kind of answered it, but do we have a dominant ethical perspective currently, necessarily dominated by the countries that are investing the most of the resources in the artificial intelligence? So we are speaking probably about 8 or 9 countries that are doing most of the work in the field of AI. So is it natural that their perspective is dominant and basically maybe all that we are going to have in the future?
You want to go ahead? Oh yeah, okay. Yes, it's there is a dominant ideology, which is once again the ontology. It's the only perspective. I haven't seen that much work done on consequentialism, for example. If we only take continental philosophy, ethics is divided into 3 branches, which is virtue ethics by Aristotle, the ontology, Immanuel Kant, and then consequentialism with Hutches and Bentham and Mill. So most of the time, people are thinking about ethics as the ontological code of the ontology, right? What is acceptable and what is not acceptable. And this is something you can see, obviously, in those countries that are leading in the market of AI, because most of those countries are Western countries, right? So they're really familiar with the ontology. If you go with consequentialism, the issue is that it's not always acceptable by citizens. If you feel like, for example, my job in my company is to make money, and because it will obviously benefit to the entire society by creating jobs and improving the national income, people will not understand that. People mainly understand things that are acceptable in terms of value. We are against this or we're against that, so we will do this or we will do that, whatever the consequences, right? On the other hand, if you're consequentialist, you would say sometimes you have to violate rules in order to get a greater good at the very end, right? That's the consequential perspective, which is a really political perspective that you can find, for example, in Machiavelli's work, saying that the ends justify the means, right? It's not exactly that. Consequentialism is not exactly that. But the point for political people is that you have to take into account the benefit, the greater good for the greater amount of people, right? And not only respecting rules that are related to values. Sometimes you have to violate some values because you would get something better at the very end. So this is the perspective that we have today. It's deontological, but once again, it's a really superficial deontology because it's really a top-down deontology, while if you read Immanuel Kant Metaphysics, you will see that actually the ontology comes from the individual and its volition, right? And through different perspectives, you will go to these universal rules, but it really starts with human beings, with individuals. What we are doing now is the ontology starting from organization or public authorities just imposing rules to the rest of the population.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Yeah.
I have one sub question for you, but before, just to give Idoia a chance to also to contribute to the answer.
Yeah, I really think that at the end, I mean, we could be talking for days about this, but I think at the end we are going to end with the same decision, with the same conclusion. We are going to be making different code of ethics for this, and I really think because we all have like different perceptions, I think it's totally wrong. Just for example, in the European, in Spain, just to give you an example of this, in Spain we are waiting, or the government of Spain is waiting for the European legislation on ethics of on AI and responsible use of AI in order to make their own normative towards this technology. And I really think that we talk with the government of Spain, I tell them not to, like, I mean, we could have like a common basis, but we should have our own normative, and still I'm not sure that it's going to be useful, but because I think in terms of, there are some things that we take into account with this technology. For example, I think the most the best one to illustrate this is like privacy. Just when you try to regulate, we have the GDPR, as you were saying, in privacy, but still inside of the same company, there are many people that think differently towards privacy. So what do we have to do with this? What I said at the end of my talk, it says, I think we should stimulate the responsibility of consumers in some way, because every one of us is going to have like different perspective, different perceptions of different privacy. So when they approach people, regular people approach one specific product or service with AI, they should have the final responsibility to consume that specific product or service, depending on their personal beliefs of privacy in this case.
Yeah, I understand. So, Emmanuel, one question from Mark for you. Is the Western AI ethics narrative a neo-Marxist take on technology as a means of control? Very interesting one.
Really interesting question. Actually, I avoid labeling things with political labels, but that does not really make sense, right? You can find a libertarian perspective on AI. What I would say definitely is that it's much more related to Foucault, the philosopher, works on governmentality, which is for a government to be able to control bodies and minds in order to make people accept some rules and to control the behaviors of the population, right? It's much more about that, just controlling the people, whatever the political, background of it. So I would not label it in any kind of political way.
Mm-hmm. Okay, fair enough. So, if you are speaking about the worst case scenario, if we continue to have only one perspective of ethics, what do you think could be the consequences of that approach? For example, if the one at the moment Western ethical approach dominates, then what could we expect in the future? What are you concerned with?
I mean, I don't think it's possible to have that. I mean, we are seeing this. I think people are, I think it's not possible to make like a worldwide regulation, a worldwide. I mean, we are seeing, like, for example, when I show you in my slide the European perspective with the white paper, we were seeing how we are going to be regulated specific things and personalizing a lot. I think the key is to personalize in terms of culture, in terms of as I was saying, even in terms of very specific cases of use in order to apply this normative of ethics or this general legislation. If we keep going this way, I think where we're going to gain is like people are not going to be trusting this technology, and this technology is not going to grow this much. Mm-hmm. But I don't think that it would be that scenario. I really think that there could be some commercial consequences. What do you think, Emmanuel?
Yes. is the worst that could happen?
Yeah, if you think about the worst case scenario, I would say that we would reach a point where we would have kind of a global code of ethics that would be based on Western values, right? But when you look at China, who is a growing actor and maybe will be the first actor in AI in the future, they will certainly agree, diplomatically speaking, about that, but they will not apply it because it will not correspond to their perspective, right? You can do the same with India. You can do the same with, the Arabic Peninsula, with a lot of countries that are really powerful. So I've been working in diplomacy for a long time, and we all nod around the table saying yes, yes, yes. But when we go back home, we do whatever we want, depending on our own interests, right? So this is what will happen. We'll have a really weak soft law, what we call soft law, right? Which will not be implemented in the correct way, right? And at the very end, it will be useless. So this is what we're doing. Plus, the big issue is that at some point, some countries that are really dynamic in AI should consider that this tyranny that has been imposed by the West is something unacceptable. So you can create tension between countries that have different interests around this powerful tool, which is AI, which are norms, which are data as well, right? So you can create tension between countries, and that's not good. So we have to respect this diversity. We need to have kind of an international body regulating all that at some point, or making sure that everyone is working correctly with others. But the worst case scenario would be tension around the interest of AI ethics, because it's not only with the civilian world, it's also in the military world. You've heard about the lethal autonomous weapons and all the benefits and all the what is at stake behind that, right? So you can create tension, and we don't want that. We don't want it.
Yeah, okay. Thanks for the answers, both of you. So then let me connect this to the comments of some authors that are in this area who are kind of concerned that if we continue to develop the AI as we did until now, what probably is going to happen that we will have, but both speaking inside the country and in between the countries, we might have and expect biases for the underrepresented populations in the future. So basically you have some groups of people who don't have enough political power or strength or even numbers, and then there are going to be consequences in treating them with different AI systems. So do you think it's possible, or do you think it's something that is happening already in a certain sense?
I think what you're saying is happening already, but it's not happening only with AI. It happened between humans. I really think so. So I really want to tell you that maybe we don't show it. We are like a black box ourselves, because we cannot see anything inside of our brain. Sometimes we have that unconscious bias and also I was saying, and that is going to keep happening, because the machines just is like a mirror in which we look ourselves nowadays, and we see it clearly. We'll a little bit more clear to approach it if we approach it this way. So I really think that really in a while we're going to see these machines, these AI systems, helping us with these helping us in eliminating this our unconscious bias when making important decisions. So I really think that machines are going to be like kind of eliminating the unconscious bias. It's going to still we are going to still having this bias inside of any country, any part, because it's, as I'm telling you, we live with that in our daily life as humans.
Yeah,
also.
It's true.
So,
it's true. This is our
sometimes we
world
forget our problems as humans and then focus everything in the machine. But at the end, I really think that we should come back to the essence of everything, which are humans, and think we are the main problem of this. So.
Okay, Emmanuel, your take on that?
Yeah, I totally agree with Idoia on that point. I just want to stress something that is really interesting. I mean, fighting against biases that are part of human beings' behaviors, and we are all acting through biases all the time. Fighting against biases in machines is in itself a bias, which postulate the fact that there is something I've heard that many times, that machine could be more human than human, right? That doesn't make sense. There is nothing more human than humans, right? So what we're trying is to, we're trying to find kind of a perfection, which would be machines that would be, freed from all the flaws of human beings. Yeah. So this is totally insane, right? That does not work, because doing so, it's our perception of what perfection is that we will introduce in the machine. So when you remove biases in the machine, right, whatever the intention behind that, what you are doing, you are transforming the reality of the world. So you're creating a world that is not the real world that we live in. And whatever you do, whatever you want, even if you disagree with some biases, and I disagree with some biases, you have to accept that those biases are here. And if you want to mimic the brain of human beings and machines, you will have biases in the machines, whatever they are. So you can, I guess, you can address some specific issues from specific algorithms in specific situations, right? But you cannot say that we will remove all biases from machines. That doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. And I would say that, personal point of view from a philosopher, I mean, perfection is hidden in imperfection, right? Perfection does not exist per se. I feel we are perfect bodies, perfect human beings, because we are imperfect per nature, right? So if you're trying to build something that is not the reality, I don't know where we're going exactly.
Well, this is one very interesting position on that. And I mean, I can think out of 5 questions that are connected to that, but I don't want to digress too much further. We might leave it for some of our next occasions. But then maybe to address the general idea also of this webinar. I mean, and I know that there are some people are here who are also dealing with that problem and researching it in a certain way. So do you think that there even could be universal code of ethics if we are speaking on a global level, somehow connected with only a few but universal human values? Is it even possible? Are we going to achieve it? Is it something that we should aim at all?
I think we shouldn't. I really think so. I think it's unuseful.
Sorry, you said that we should or that we shouldn't. I didn't hear you.
We shouldn't. I think it's unuseful. Unuseful. I think these cultural differences and our as we were saying in the previous question, our cultural bias, kind of bias, are like part of our culture, as our as ourselves. And I really think that it is very good to have these global village in some terms, in terms of communication or in some specific terms. But, I don't know what, it just doesn't make sense to try to keep away all these cultural differences and try to make us, I mean, the thing of making like universal code of ethics is not going to bring us closer. I mean, in some way, I think it's good to have that differences among us. It doesn't make us what we are, what we actually are, and we shouldn't be looking for like this. We should approach ourselves in some specific things, like communications, like another thing. But for what we are going to do us like this? I mean, I really wouldn't like to be the same as, for example, my friends. It's totally the same, with the same likes, with the same things, or I do not like to talk with somebody that really agree with me in everything. I think it's like very boring in some way, and I really and I really think that is good, and it would be very good for every one of us to have our different cultural perspectives of things, and because it enriches us all.
Well, you did a good introduction to my next question, but let me hear Emmanuel on this one also. Do you believe in the universal code of ethics?
No, I don't believe in it, and I don't think it is desirable. I do agree with Idoia on that point. The beauty of the world is its diversity, its nuances, right? It's not having one particular stance. The point is that even if we reach at some point kind of a universal code, that would be a Western code, right? Once again, that would be really weak. But the point is, what will happen when China will be the #1 in AI? And when they will try to impose their own perspective, will we accept that? Are we ready to accept that 19% of the population of the world would impose the perspective, their political stance, their opinion on us? We would not, right? We would not. So I don't know why why we would be legitimate in doing the same thing when we represent only 15% of humanity. And I totally agree with Idoia. The point is that the beauty of all that is the debate that can be created through all that, and what we can learn from each other. And we have to learn to listen first, not to hear noises, but to listen actively to what people are saying without judging them, right? I can disagree with this or that political stance, political regime. That's not the point. But I have to admit that whatever it takes, people do have diverse and different perspective, different opinion. Mine is not better than anyone else's, right? I have to accept that, right? It's all about the debate. And something that we lost in Europe, I feel, and especially in France, we are always antagonizing people against each other. We are not debating, we are not listening to other, right? We want to impose our own views on the rest of the world, on other people. And this is something that is really lacking in the Western world today, is a real debate with people that are listening to others, even if you don't agree with them.
Yeah, but because it's really hard, probably.
It is hard, yes, you're right, it's hard, definitely.
Yeah, we had 3 comments that are all good in chat. So first, Mark said, the perfect is the enemy of good, quoting Voltaire. Also, the Arcus de la Cruz also agreed with them. And we have one question, maybe then I will not ask mine, but I will ask and comment the idea from Željko Krizmanić from Croatia. So he said, how about we introduce the Hippocratic Oath as an oath of ethics to be taken by coders or AI manufacturers? Is something like that possible, or could we do it? Should we do it?
Yeah, I really in Spain there are like plenty of people that are trying to do the Hippocratic Oath, and I really think that, I mean, every one of us, every one of the data scientists or insight or any company managers, as I was saying, should be thinking about the responsibility that they have when using this technology. If the AI algorithm is going to have like a big impact. So it is good that they think about the responsible use of AI before applying these AI systems. So I really think so that it would be very good to have like a Hippocratic Oath for the data scientists and people in companies that are going to be using these AI systems. I didn't talk to you about these before, but in Spain, in many places in Europe are also talking about doing kind of certifications on AI systems, so they could certify that, like officially certify that one like big impact AI system could be is going to be good or bad for consumers.
Okay, Emmanuel.
Yeah, I think that it would be desirable, but that's impossible for one reason, which is really easy to understand, is that when you talk about the doctors and the medical people that are working in that, their relation to their job is not the same as a programmer or a manufacturer to AI, right? I would make the comparison between, the health industry and the military. When you enter the health industry as a doctor, as a nurse, or something like that, you enter with a high idea of what you're doing, right? So you're doing something that is greater than you. You're doing something that is for humanity. You're saving lives. You're healing people, right? So you're doing something that makes sense, right? You will not find this kind of symbolic perceptions in AI. You can find that in the military. We have ethics codes in the military, right? Because we feel like what we're doing is transcendental. There is something bigger than us. We are just, small cogs into a big system that is working for the community. When you are a manufacturer in AI, your only interest is to make money, and that's not a value judgment. It's just a statement, right? I don't have any issues with that, right? Any kind of, I think it's a Friedman theory or something like that. Any company is aimed at making profits, right? So what you're trying to do is making profits. And I don't see programmers seeing artificial intelligence as something like transcendental, like, a technical god or something they're working for, and they're really involved in terms of value. So programming AI or using AI, selling AI products, it's a market. It's not related to something sacred. When you're a nurse, when you're a doctor, when you're a military member, you have something that is bigger than you, right? So there is a symbolic perspective on it that is really different than the one that you can have with AI ethics.
Okay, well, great. Probably if we had Yassim here also, or even more panelists, we would hear also more different opinions. But I think that that you agreed on most of the topics. Regarding our time, it's exactly 1 o'clock and 1 minute. So we are just going to stop with our discussion at the moment. I have many more questions, of course, to ask and many more topics to discuss, and I'm sure that the audience has them also. But since we planned this time frame, we are going to stick to it. I would like, of course, to say that ethics is something that I'm kind of researching partially inside of my national AI capital project, which is also kind of interesting thing that we might discuss in the future. I would like first to thank all of the participants that are here. I counted more than 40 of them, but it's possible that it's been more than 50. I was not following the whole time. I would also like to thank Idoia and Emmanuel and Yassim, who prepared also very interesting presentation about the AI ethics and cybersecurity, but then maybe we'll have a chance to hear him next time. We do have the plans to organize few of those in the future, maybe 2 or 3 or even 4 of the webinars, depending on the potential sponsors and organizers and a few other things that we're doing. And also one of the consequences that we're discussing at the moment will be to create the kind of a think tank of people who are going to address on a global level this issue of multiculturalism and the approach and that kind of approach to the ethics in the artificial intelligence. So this might be something interesting also for some of our participants. At the end, what I can do is, of course, to invite all of you to connect with us, to connect with each other, to share the ideas, to send me your comments. And just to tell you, we have also recently created Facebook page, and we have a LinkedIn group. So you're all more than welcome to join us there, and then also to share your thoughts and your ideas there. So I would like to close this event and thank all of you and see you on the next occasion. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Ej. Ćao, čao.
Imamo još Vinko nam je ovdje. Ne znam, je nam ostao.
Ja vidim Tomislava. Vinko u popisu,
Što vidiš?
Tomislav u ovome, u live listu. Čekaj.
Aha, da. I da, jel postoji ona opcija kick?
Yes. Na ovom plusiću kraj imena imaš ovaj gumbić za gašenje, ne? I onda ga možeš samo izbaciti van.
To na ljevoj strani govoriš?
Na ljevoj, a za desnu isto tako imaš ovu opciju kick, tako je, za ove koji su nam čisto u streamu. Okay. Evo, ja sam završila. Ja sam sve završila. Kliknula sam finish, tako da je to to. Tu sam u sobi, ali ću sad da kolegica vidjeti što je bilo ovo sa Silvijom, jer mi je poslala mail da nije uspjela.
I što je bilo s ovim još sa kroja, nekako sam je
ovu žensku sa Face, ako se javila na info, to je isto preuzela moja kolegica iz supporta. Mislim, uvijek ima neki procent ljudi koji imaju nekakve probleme koji su najčešće do njih, ali kažem, tipa ovo sa Jasimom, mi možemo te stvari provjeriti sa naše strane, da li je nešto...
Da, mislim, on je rekao da će izaći, pa onda vjerojatno
ali
kad se bio išao vratiti, onda ne znam je li on stvarno pokušao ili je rekao da je probao, ili mu se nije dalo naći ili je vidio da to možda...
To je meni čudno jer je frajer u mailu napisao u stilu kao ne mogu ući, ali kao maybe I'm not needed.
Da, i meni je napisao još nekakav komentar kao poslije da misli da je to dosta kao za nešto u smislu za Europu napravljeno, tako da nisam sigurno što bi o tom mislio.
Dobro, ali ovako je bitno, mi ćemo provjeriti, za njega nije problem, ali mislim da je generalno sve ok prošlo, vidim da su se ljudi spavali cijelo vrijeme gledali i nešto su neko malo refreshao, očito tu i tamo pa bi ušao i izašao. I super.
Ja, možeš imati podatak koliko je ukupno ljudi bilo maksimalno spojeno od svih ovih koji su
provjeriti sada sa programerima pa ti javim kroz nekih pola sata. Mislim da je nekako 50 nešto sitno, 2-3, i najviše istovremeno bilo spojeno, a onda su odlazili u
Ja sam 30-ak izbrojao maksimalno u jednom.
Tak i ja isto, 37-8.
Ali moguće da su neki izlazili pa da je bilo preko 40, zato sam rekao 40.
Yes. Tako da je to. Vidi, ako će ti se javiti slučajno, mislim, ne znam, evo, nadam se da si ti zadovoljan kako je sve prošlo, a ako će ti se slučajno javiti još netko, da je bilo šta, da je imao nekih tehničkih problema, isto te molim da ga slobodno uputiš na ovaj info@entrio.hr mail, to ti je ovaj support za svu publiku, za sve posjetitelje, pa će onda kolegica preuzeti te upite da vidi što je bilo. Eto.
Može. Dobro, ništa.
Čujemo se dalje.
Da, ja mislim, moram se čuti, samo još izberom, ok, vi to sad kad obračunate, tu je nekakva, par karti je kupljeno, vidjeti kakav je trošak toga, kako vi to naplatite.
Je, skupljeno, prodano, mi smo sad nešto i taj pricing malo preslagivali u korist organizatora, u smislu nekog jeftinijeg seta, pa tako da ću ja još to provjeriti danas s njim, pa ti se javim svakako još danas na mail sa svim infostima oko toga. Eto ga, super. Čujemo se, vidimo se.